Has your desperation ever gotten in the way of your success or your results or your influence, where you're just looking up at someone with those beady eyes like, please, please, this is going to be so good for you? Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? This is Munir coming at you with another episode of Charming Confident Communication. In this series, we help you to confidently communicate, converse, connect, and convert, whether it's online or offline, even if you're the shyest of wallflowers. And today we're talking about something called indifference. Now, what do I mean by indifference? Have you ever, basically, indifference is the opposite of desperation, right? And this is something, one of the principles of persuasion, one of the principles that I talk about in my book, Power Persuasion. And let me give you a metaphor before we start. Have you ever taken two magnets and you want them to attract to each other? You expect them, when you bring them close enough, that they're just going to, right? However, you bring two magnets close together, and then what happens sometimes, if you put the wrong ends together, you bring it close and it pushes the other one away, right? And that's what happens when you don't have indifference in your persuasion. Ultimately, you start to repel people away. And so I'm going to be sharing with you in today a framework that will help you to stop repelling people when it comes to your influence. Now, before we do that, this is a show. We are live at 5. If you are online, please, if you're tuning in live, please drop a note, say hello. Preeta, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in again. Live at 5. Anyone else, please drop a note, say hello, welcome on, and let's get rolling. So, like I said, today we're talking about one of the principles of persuasion called indifference. Now, I'd like to tell you a very quick story. When I first started my career, I started doing door-to-door sales. And on one of the first few days when I was learning how to sell, I started to learn my sales presentation. And I was going along with one of my trainers, a guy by the name of Richard Long. He's a super well-dressed guy from London, kindest of hearts. I'm very close with him to this day. And he was ultimately training me and just taking notes on what I was doing and where I could improve. And so we went into one of the houses and knocked on, rang the bell, a guy came to the door, and we started speaking to this guy. And I gave my sales presentation. Now, I started giving my sales presentation, and then what happened is the guy that I was speaking to, he starts to, he turns around and he says, okay, well, what about these guys? Does everybody like it anyway? And so I answer him and I say, well, yeah, I mean, lots of people liked it, etc. And then he goes, yeah, but what about if this happens? And he gives me a little bit of an objection, and I answer him, and I'm like, no, I don't think it will happen. It will, This is gonna happen. You're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna love it. And basically, what happens is he starts to go on this, asking me a bunch of questions, so that I'm starting to justify myself. And not only am I trying to justify myself, but I find myself I'm just trying to convince him too much. I was like, yeah, you love it. You come on, you got to do it. It's so good for you. And I'm just trying my best to just say, it's so good. It's this. I'm essentially trying to convince him so much. And I look at Richo, and Richo's looking at me. He's trying to signal to me something, and I don't know. I have no idea what he's trying to signal to me. And so he's trying to signal something to me. I'm trying to work it out, but then I keep going and I keep trying to convince him. He says something else and I try and convince him. He says something else and I try and convince him. He's not saying no, but he's asking me questions that are sort of putting me on the back foot to get me to justify myself. And then all of a sudden, Richo just jumps in and he says to the guy, "Sir, look, I'm sorry, we're kind of running out of time. We're going to have to go to someone else. Look, if you want to do it, that's great. If you don't want to do it, that's totally fine. It really makes no difference to us if you do it or not. It's just our job to give you the option because all your neighbors are doing it. And but if you want to do it, great. We're happy to help. If you don't want to, that's totally fine as well. But you know, we really can't stay because there's a few other people that we have to get to." And the guy goes, "Yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it." And I'm like, what just happened? I'm like, my mind was blown. I'm like, what? You just like tried to, what? This is my what reaction. Like, what just happened? And like, he literally, all Richard did was just like, "Look, we don't care." As soon as he basically said, "We don't care," and then the guy went, "Oh, okay, I want to do it." My mind was blown. Ruhi, thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Great to see you. Konen, great to see you as well. Thanks for tuning in. So my mind was blown. Literally, when Richo just said, "Look, we don't care," then this guy became more interested. And this is where I first started to learn this whole principle of indifference. And indifference is one of the principles of persuasion. And I really can't explain it, but you've seen it so many times in real life. I often give the example of when I go out in the street and I see a cat over there. The cat is curious, but as soon as I walk towards the cat, it runs away. It just like, whoa, just runs away. But if I just maintain a distance and I sort of like, as if I'm not interested in going, if I'm not that interested in going up to the cat, but I maintain a little bit of attention, then usually the cat will come to me. And it's crazy, but it happens in real life. Some of you are like, perhaps if you've ever been in a relationship where you were, before you're married, or girlfriend, boyfriend, or maybe if you've been through a breakup and you really want to get the person back, and you really want the person back, and nothing ever happens, and then all of a sudden you don't want that person, and then they come back to you. Like they're like, "Oh, I wish I was with you again." And you're like, "Now that I've gotten over it, now you come back? Like now? What?" You know? So this whole principle of indifference happens so much in real life. That's why, you know, you hear phrases in the dating world like playing hard to get or things like that. Like, because when there's so much desperation, people get turned off. If you go into a shop and you just start looking, even if you really want to buy something, you walk into the shop and you go look at it, and someone like literally just comes up to your face and is like, wait, hold up. It comes up to your face and like, hi, can I help you? Hey, yes, what are you looking for today? And you're just like, I'm just looking, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, yeah, but you should really try this one. Lots of people like this. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah. And you like run off in the next direction, because like it's a bit too much. I mean, like, get away from me. Like, there's a bit too much desperation, and so you don't do it because there's a lack of indifference. So indifference can be so powerful. And you just remember this phrase. I wrote this today. This is lose the desperation or be faced with frustration. Let me repeat that. So good, I gotta repeat it twice, right? Lose the desperation or be faced with frustration. All right? So, Tony. Tony is online. Tony, what's up, Tony? Hope you're good, man. I was actually just telling one of our stories from when I was doing door to door. So one of the guys that's just come on Facebook, he was around. He's one of the guys that I learned one of these principles from. So, hey Laura, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so lose the desperation or be faced with frustration. All right, so today I'm going to share with you a 4-step framework that will help you to create this indifference, okay? And I call it the HAQU framework, and it's HAQU, right? The first one is help, and I say help because you have to be so convinced that your product is there to help the other person, not you, right? Like your product is actually going to help them. If you don't believe that, get another product, right? As long as you truly believe that your product will actually help somebody and it is useful for them, not for you. Forget you. You don't matter in this equation. If we're talking about persuasion, forget you. You need to be helping other people. So how can you have to be 100% convinced that your product will help the other person. As long as you are coming from a framework where, hey, this is going to help you, right? What I have will help you, and I care about helping you, right? Then you lose that desperation. That desperation doesn't show because you're coming from a place of care that you want to help person. So you, number one, the prerequisite is obviously find something that you have that will really help someone. Okay. So the second one is affect, right? What you have, like if you do it or you don't do it, it will not affect me, right? In the long run. So I'm going to be okay. So when it comes to persuasion, if you're trying to get someone to do something, you really got to believe that, like, at the end of the day, look, if you do it or you don't do it, it's totally fine. It's not going to affect me in the long run. However, it's going to have a big impact on you. It's going to affect you. It's not going to affect me. And that is a frame of mind that will really make a massive difference in your life. Like, in the long run, hey, there are other people. There's plenty of efficiency. There's plenty of other people that will buy your product or service or whatever it is that you're offering. But maintain that whatever, it does not affect me. Like, because the reality is, if they say yes, if they say no, it doesn't matter in a couple of weeks, right? 2 weeks from now, 1 week from now, 3 days from now, it doesn't matter. However, for them, it will affect them. So you got to keep that in mind. So that's number 2. Number 3 is you got to qualify. Now, really, this should be earlier, right? You should make sure that the person that you're talking to is actually relevant. So when I'm for example, if I'm in a sales environment or if I'm doing some sales, I will qualify and then help the person. And here's what I mean, right? I will say to someone, look, does the idea make sense to you? Are you looking for something that's going to help you? And then they say, if they say yes, and then say, okay, totally, that's cool. So, and then I will continue to help them. But sometimes I'll say something like, look, if you want to do this, if you don't want to do this, that's totally fine. I really don't, it does not make any difference to me if you do this or not. However, am I right in assuming that this is something that you want help in? This is an area that you're looking for help in. Let's say if you're a coach or like a fitness trainer, am I right in assuming that you'd like to lose weight? Is that right? And they go, yeah, and then I'd continue. Like you're sort of qualifying them. There's a lot of different ways to go over qualification. I'm not going to cover that in detail, but you want to make sure that the person is relevant. As long as they're relevant, continue to talk to them, because then you just sort of say, if they're not relevant, okay, then that's totally cool. Then don't talk to them. Like why are you gonna like try and push a wall? Like it's not gonna work. So forget it. But as long as they are interested. Now, how do I qualify? Like, if a person needs what you have, if they want what you have, And if they can afford what you have, that's pretty much what it comes down to, qualification, right? If they are looking to quit smoking, if they need to quit smoking, they want to quit smoking, and they can afford quitting smoking, usually because they're spending money on the cigarettes and they can pay for a hypnotherapist instead, then it's my duty to like help convince the person, okay, let's make a change, right? I will help them. I will answer the questions, and and this is where I'd sort of say, look, if you do it or you don't do it, it's not gonna make a difference to me, right? In a day, in a week, it's not gonna make, but it's gonna make a huge difference to you. And I might stay and overcome objections. That's not desperation, because I can keep saying, look, if you do it or you don't do it, that's totally cool. But is this something that you want? And they'll go, yes. Then I'll continue. So making sure that this is something that someone wants. All right. So we've gone through so help, affect, qualify, and then U is upfront. And now, what do I mean by upfront? Being upfront about what flaws you have. So let's say everyone else in the market is cheaper, right? Great. Be upfront about it. Just be like, yeah, you know what? And here's the thing. We are a more premium service. Yeah, you can go out there and you can find people that are a lot cheaper, and they're not going to do the work as well, or they're not going to care about you as much, or they don't have the after follow service. However, and so you can be upfront about what flaws. So many people go in and they try and hide the things that might deter people. If you're upfront about it, it shows your indifference, and people are much more likely to trust you and like you and want to work with you because you are that way. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of two major brands that really became successful because of this one principle. So you've probably heard of Avis Rent-A-Car. Like I think it was in the 60s, like Hertz Rent-A-Car was the number one car rental company, and by a large margin. Like they were like a lot bigger. And so Avis went and they came up with a marketing campaign, and then that said something like, when you're number two, you try harder. And literally they just took the thing that they were their flaw, they made it the most obvious thing and turned it into a positive. Because you're number two, we're number two, we try harder. So we work harder than our competitor. We give so much more, etc. MJ, thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate. Thanks, brother. So that's the story of Avis, and because of that, I think the gap was about 30% difference in terms of market share. It came down to about 10 to 15% market share difference because of that campaign and because they were so upfront about it. Another one is L'Oreal. L'Oreal is extremely famous because and around the world right now, and their campaign, by the way, which still goes till today, started out because they brought up one of their flaws, which was they were the most expensive. So what they started off with the campaign saying, okay, our products are more expensive than anybody else, and that's good because you are worth it. Like pay the money for the best product because you're worth it. That was L'Oreal's campaign. And now, like, it's now, I probably get it completely wrong, but it's you're worth it, right? Like the slogan. But like that's how it started. But it is the most expensive, and you should pay a premium because you are worth it. You should pay for the best because you're worth it, right? They took the flaw and brought it up front, right to the top. All right. So that is my HAQU framework for bringing out the indifference so that you get rid of desperation. And like I said, the phrase for today, that if you want to remember a phrase, is lose desperation or be faced with frustration. Cool. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Hopefully this was useful. Big shout out to Safia, Aneta, Anne, Isabel. Great. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I really appreciate and want to show you guys a lot of love. Thank you all for tuning in. If you have not, please do subscribe on YouTube. And there's a boom over there. Yeah, and subscribe. On this series, I talk about unconscious communication secrets. I might actually change the title to Unconscious Communication Secrets. And basically, it's how we can get so much further and faster using unconscious communication and persuasion. And hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you all for tuning in. One love, peace out, and I will see you on another video very soon.